Hey there YouTube, this is sjm4306 back with another review video. This time, it's something a little bit random. Now this isn't actually something that I'm the target audience for, but I think it'll still be interesting. Plus I really want to do a teardown and see what's inside. Anyway, I was contacted by a company called Yoton, something like that. And they have portable DVD players, and I haven't used a portable I actually haven't watched a DVD in quite a while. I have a few upstairs, but yeah, anyway, I thought this would be kind of interesting and a bit of a throwback to see what the quality, because I don't think many companies still make portable DVD players. Anyway, yeah, this is the, let's see, model number YD075. Catchy, just rolls off the tongue. Basically, this retails for about 50 bucks, I want to say. I'll put a correction if I'm wrong or if it goes on sale by the time this video will come out. Anyway, it is a swivel DVD player, so it has one of these little screens that swivels around so you can mount it on the back of like a headrest of a car so that your kids will shut up, in a nutshell. And I think that's probably one of the target audiences is parents to get their kids. And if you don't want to get a tablet for your kid and then have to worry about locking it down so that they don't access things that they shouldn't be accessing, this is definitely a viable solution for that. Also, interestingly enough, they in the promotional materials, like the advertisement on the Amazon page, they noted that this is good for elders, which I guess if you think about it, yeah, it kind of would be, assuming that the screen is big enough that they could actually see it. But yeah, this is a 7.5 inch display, I believe, diagonal. It is 800 by 480, so it's not HD. But then again, DVDs aren't not really HD to begin with. I think they're around that resolution, so that sort of matches up. But it does have like the ability to play movies and media off of like an SD card or a thumb drive. So yeah, that's going to be your limiting factor, is the standard definition resolution of the display. Apparently this has a pretty beefy battery. It'll run about 6 hours according to their specifications, and it'll play back all sorts of video CDs, DVDs, recordable discs, etc., etc. Anyway, let's just get into this. Let's see, anything else that we did not cover? Nope. Dimensions. That's about it. Yeah, the display swivels 270, so not quite 360. This is my first time opening this. So yeah, I like when things are packaged with this kind of bubble wrap thing. So that definitely helps keep the units in surviving condition. So there is pretty much nothing else in the box besides these two parts. We are probably going to see an AC adapter, I'm guessing. Oh yeah, and by the way, this does do video output, so you could hook this up to your TV if you just happen to not have a DVD player anymore. But it doesn't do HDMI, it does composite AV out. And at least they do include the cable for that. It's one of these 4-ring 3.5mm jack to video and left and right audio RCA. So yeah, I mean, you can run a quick test on that. It's probably going to look mediocre because it's composite. That's the limiting factor here. Interestingly enough, it does come with a car cigarette adapter, which, like I said, if your kids, if you're going on a long road trip and your kids want to bring a stack of like SpongeBob DVDs or whatever, you're going to need to power it maybe possibly beyond the battery, the internal battery life. So yeah, has an AC adapter, just out of curiosity. 12 volts, 1 amp. There you go. And we have the player itself, which is actually decently small. And we have the user manual, which is protected for your protection, I guess. And yeah, thank you. Got some nice infographics, etc., etc. Oh, it does have a remote. Hopefully it has a remote. Hopefully it's like stowed inside somewhere, because I don't think I saw a remote in the box. Unless if mine is just missing the remote. Oh, duh. I literally just put it aside. Okay, yeah, it does have a remote. It's one of these little IR ones. It looks like 2 AAA batteries, and it has rubber membrane buttons, which aren't great, but aren't terrible. It's better than those, the clicky membrane buttons, which always give me trouble and always tend to fail after a little while. So rubber buttons are better than that. So yeah, yeah, here we go. Verifies 800 by 480 res. It says working time here. It says 4 hours. It said 6 hours on the box. Not really sure which is which. So split the difference, probably about 5 hours. And yeah, all the formats it will support. I'm almost wondering if you could just stick a bunch of MP4s on a DVD-R, because that would be actually pretty convenient. But if it has an SD card, actually just stick them on the SD card. No need to burn a disc anymore. I can't tell you when the last time I actually burnt a DVD was. It's probably many, many years ago by now. Anyway, we have the unit itself, which, okay, already kudos on the brushed fake metal top. If it were matte, well, matte would have been fine as well, but I hate when devices are glossy, because especially if you're going to give a kid this, if it were glossy, it would be imprinted and destroyed within like minutes of them touching it. So yeah, at least matte, it's a little more resistant towards fingerprints. I mean, you could see them if you look at an angle, but yeah, and even if you scratch it, it won't look as out of place. So we have that hinge mechanism here. We have a game. It says game. I wonder if they're built-in games or if you can play games on here somehow. That's interesting. It says TV here, and then it's covered. So when we pop this open, I want to see if there's like a spot for a jack on the PCB there, because that's interesting. And we have the AC in here. We have the on-off switch. The audio video in, audio video out. Oh, you can actually pipe composite video into this. That's pretty cool. And we have standard headphone jack, SD card, and USB. So that's where you stick your movies on a thumb drive. What's this whole game thing about? Like a game controller, do they mean? Or nothing else on this side. And we just got the IR port, and it looks like power indicator stuff on the front here. And I like to see, just looks like just Phillips screws on the bottom, so that'll be really easy to open. Anyway, let's open this for the first time. There is a protective film on it, and I'm happy to say just ASMR right now. I'm happy to say that the display itself is matte, which I actually kind of prefer matte displays over glossy, especially in a car. There's usually like a lot of strong passing lights and whatnot, so having a glossy display would actually make it harder to see. So I prefer matte, definitely, especially in a car-like environment. We have 2 little speakers here. Let's see how tinny those are, which they'll invariably be tinny. Let's see which way does it rotate. It rotates this way. Yeah, it says 180 here, just molded into the plastic. So yeah, you can only switch it, I guess if you swing it this way, it stops right at that point. If we go the other direction, it says 90. And oh, they're little tiny arrows. So 180, it's saying swing it that way, 90 degrees, swing it that way. Why would you want to watch a movie with only a 90 degree, like what? Why would you want to watch a movie like this? Okay, whatever. So we'll swing it around and then give it a close. And there you go. That's how you'd mount this in some kind of sling on your headrest so that your kids can watch a movie. I mean, the hinge it feels actually pretty good. It doesn't snap at certain positions or anything. It's just kind of a resistive motion. There's a little switch here to open the DVD portion, which opens easily enough. And they put, okay, this is interesting. So there's a little card to protect the laser, which, there we go, which is in there, and that's just to cover it during transit, so nothing gets damaged there. Yeah, we can see the laser. It's right in there. Actually a pretty thick boy. I know some of the later models of like portable DVD players had like really, they were super thin. This is definitely chunkier. But then again, if this has good battery life, then I'd rather trade off better battery life for a model that's going to sit in the car anyway. We have the spindle, which has these little clicky teeth that'll click into the disc. And that's kind of it. And what looks like maybe some venting or something. It just closes like that. We have a couple buttons, navigation buttons for menus. They feel pretty cheap. It's just a plastic button, and then there's a tact switch underneath it. And they're pretty noisy to use it, but then again, you really shouldn't have to use the buttons, and if you have it mounted in your car anyway, you're probably going to be using the remote, so that's fine. There's a menu, stop, mode or stop maybe, setup, and then volume up, down, a USB card, M, which I guess is like menu. I guess this is mode. I don't know, because the mode and stop icons are right above each other. I guess this is stop, this is mode. So whatever. And so let's power this on and see if it has any charge. Ah, came on. I will say, looking at the screen, even though it's only 840 by 480, just on this menu, it actually looks pretty good for a WVGA resolution monitor. The pixels aren't super noticeable. If the screen were any larger, then yeah, you'd probably definitely see the pixelization, but yeah, it looks pretty decent. I don't know if they will be a battery icon. I would have liked to have seen a battery icon so that you know how much power you have left. Maybe when I start playing a disc, there'll be something, or most likely than not, it'll have a low battery icon, and you just don't know the percentage of power remaining. So I guess all that's left to do is grab a couple of DVDs and watch some movies on a 7.5-inch screen for some reason, in a format that I haven't touched for ages. And I guess I'll give you my thoughts on it, and then we can finish up with a teardown of this. So I'll be back in a sec. Quick addendum, I plugged this into the AC adapter, and yeah, the red light comes on to show it's charging. And I think that there's another LED to show you when it's done, maybe, or maybe it just goes off. But what bothers me is the LED is crooked, and it's not pointing straight there, so not so happy about that. When I open this up, I'm going to have to straighten that out. Okay, we are back. I have this all set up, I have it fully charged, and of course I've got to test it with the Matrix. Now I'm obviously not going to be able to show you, probably have to turn down the volume and not exactly show you the entire film for copyright reasons. But yeah, let's just switch it on. And you can actually set this to auto remember where you left off on the video, or you can have it always start from the beginning, so if you have to start and stop watching a movie, it can save your place in the movie, so that is a nice feature to have. Now I will say, it's definitely not the quietest. I'm sure you can hear it. It does quiet down like you just heard. Let me just turn down the volume here. But yeah, it does quiet down once it starts playing. It's the loudest when it's starting to read a disc. But this is about the average volume of the disc spinning. It's definitely noticeable. What are you going to do? It's a mechanical media. Anyway, volume on the speakers at least gets pretty loud, so plenty loud enough. And the remote actually works pretty well. Given if you have this on, like, you know, the headrest of a seat behind you, it's not really going to be that big of a deal. Viewing angles, though, not so great. You can see it washes out pretty badly once you rotate it. If you're looking towards the bottom of the screen, you have to have it kind of just right. And this is an older LCD technology. It's probably like FSTN or something like that, because you can see the black levels are pretty bad. They look kind of light gray. So contrast, especially in these dark scenes, aren't so great. But like I said, if your kid's watching a movie, I don't think they're going to care. This would actually be really good for cartoons and stuff and like animated feature films, because they usually have pretty high contrast, bright, vivid colors to begin with, and that definitely helps. Yeah, if we rotate the screen, at least I will say at least side to side viewing angle is pretty consistent. It's still not the best. So this is pretty much a one person in front of it kind of player. I don't think two people sitting, unless if they're sitting very close together, the viewing angles are going to get a little bit But yeah, so we're playing a DVD right now. I'm just going to stop this. Now, I did want to test out because it has an SD card and a USB slot. They're pretty much going to be the same, so I'm just going to test with an SD card. So I'm going to insert that and see if I can switch over. If it'll let me. There we go. Okay, you have to stop the disc first, then you can switch the mode. Okay, so it detected that I was playing this video. If I just stop that, it'll take me to the list. You can see here I tested a number of files. So I'll explain what they are. So the first two are MPEG-4s at 720p and 480p, and those do not work. It can't even detect what they are. So that was a failure. The next two are AVIs at 720p and 480p. It detects that they're video. However, when I go to play them, there's no video. It's just the audio coming through. So yeah, that's kind of a fail as well. And the 480p is the exact same thing too. It just says video resolution not supported, so I don't know what it's expecting. However, it will, interestingly enough, play 720p in MPEG format. So I believe it's MPEG 2, which is the same format as a DVD. So it figures, right? Once I try to play that, it will just play. And it works. And it actually looks not horrible. Even though the file resolution is 720p, I'm pretty sure it's downscaling it to fit the WVGA 854 by 480 resolution of this display. So, but I mean, actually, given the relative low resolution of the display, this is perfectly watchable for like random videos. However, you will need to convert like the majority of your files. Like nothing that you're going to download online is going to come in MPEG format anymore. So you will need to use something. I, for instance, used what was it called? Format Factory. And there's a pretty beefy video converter suite within that, and you can pretty much convert from anything to anything else. So that's what I used. And this video is like 1.5 minutes, and it took about as long to convert to MPEG. So decent enough. But yeah. So if you wanted to watch YouTube videos for some reason, download cartoons or whatever that you find on YouTube for your kids, you can. The odd thing that I found is the SD card sticks out like quite a bit. So if your kid is around here and futzing around, he's going to break the SD card. And probably the same thing with the USB. You can get, I would actually advise, if you wanted to play off of a memory card format, get a USB drive, but one of the slim ones that are like really stubby, and at least that way, even if your kid brushes up against it, it's not going to break. This 100% I could easily imagine if this falls one time, this card is a goner pretty much. But it's sort of offset. I use a micro SD with an adapter on there, and yeah, let's just shut this off for a sec. It's definitely built down to a price, but yeah, for that $50, I mean, if you wanted to get your kids something, but you don't want to get them a tablet, and I can definitely understand a lot of parents don't want to get their kids a tablet, because even though there are features on modern tablets to like lock kids from accessing certain apps, or like from accessing your credit card information or whatever, and buying games and stuff on the App Store, it's a pain in the butt. Let's be realistic. It's a pain in the butt to have to set that all up and try to kid-proof a product which really isn't aimed towards kids to begin with. And I wouldn't want to give a kid my personal tablet just because they're going to probably like destroy it and or get like 1 million viruses on it. So yeah, I can definitely see the case for having a device like this that is just kind of a dedicated DVD player and happens to be able to play MPEG formatted videos off of like a USB drive or a a memory card. But yeah, I could definitely see why this exists. Another option is possibly maybe for like the elderly as well. Having physical media is a lot more easy to understand for someone who's not in the know with technology. And DVDs are, I mean, they're fairly robust as long as you don't, try to bend them or anything like that, or as long as you don't lay them down flat on a table so they can get scratched. So I can definitely see, like, grandma or grandpa having a small DVD collection of, I don't know, whatever they watch, dramas or, History Channel kind of stuff. And it's easy enough. You just pop it in and you turn it on, and it'll start reading the disc and start playing. So definitely I could see that's a secondary market. I'm actually not the core audience for this. Surprise, surprise. I have multiple tablets. I use tablets all the time. So I have an expectation of, like, high quality video streaming, like HD or even 4K video on a portable. So I'm not really the target audience for this. But what I am the target audience is for popping this open and seeing exactly what's inside. Ooh, I also forgot that just now. When you have a physical media spinning, you can't kind of pick it up and rotate it because you could actually scratch the disc. I heard it rubbing on something. So yeah, that's another thing. If you are going to get this for a kid, have it like mounted kind of semi-permanently on your headrest or whatever, and don't have it moving around a lot. But yeah, anyway, I do really want to pop this open and see what's inside. I've taken apart portable DVD players before, like in the era when they were popular, so circa 2006 or so. I kind of want to see, has anything changed? And especially since this seems to be built down to a price, how have they optimized the components and the assembly in order to lower the price? Given this isn't a particularly cheap player, I believe it was like $50 or $60 last I checked. But I guess if this is something you need compared to buying your kid a tablet, you can probably find a cheap tablet in the price range of this, but it's going to be pretty shockingly bad in terms of how slow it is, how little memory it'll have. So sort of pick your poison sort of thing. Anyway, I can see like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws here. I'm going to grab a Phillips driver and see if we can pop this open. Okay, so we are in. All the screws are the same size for the most part, with the exception of the 2 back here near the hinge. So obviously they're thicker and stronger so they can support the mechanical strain. So yeah, let's see. Oh, it's just popping open. Okay. I'm used to having to fight clips or something, so there we go. And there is one connector for the button pad, which I shall remove, and the LCD, of course. And already it's kind of falling apart there, so let's just pop that back in. Looks like okay, is this glued? Oh yeah, they put some sort of rubbery adhesive just to hold that LCD down there, as well as on all the tilting bells and whatnot on these if connectors. That's interesting. But it will not keep me out. Okay, so the LCD is off. It looks like, I don't know, probably like a 30-pin connector or so. So this is going to be, that tells me this isn't an analog screen. It's actually driving it using something like a parallel 24-bit RGB. So probably slightly better quality than if they just use like a composite screen, like some of the earlier cheaper DVD players would use something like that. So at least some extra points, though the panel quality itself isn't the greatest to begin with, so don't know how much that's really going to make a difference in the end. So yeah, we have the player right here, and that's the battery. Okay, it is a 2500 milliamp hour, so let me just zoom in there. There we go. So yeah, it's a 2-cell, 7.2 volts. The cells are in series, 18650. So if you needed to oh, that actually makes sense. That's where this bulges. But if you needed to swap this out, if the batteries die, you could actually conceivably pretty easily do that. And what annoyed me when I opened this up is the LEDs are all cattywampus. Okay. Yeah, they're mounted a little bit. How you doing? We can see here the main processor is a MediaTek. It's a MT1389 VDU. And it's probably going to be just like a complete system on chip sort of doohickey. We do have a firmware sticker running version 1.01 and a whole bunch of different numbers. That's going to be your flash chip that contains a firmware for probably the processor. And we have a separate chip down here. From its proximity though, I'm expecting this to be like the USB controller, so it'll act as a USB host and allow the system on a chip to read the USB and possibly also the SD card. There is some serial flash here, it looks like, as well. Text is too tiny to decipher, but yeah, it's almost definitely some kind of serial flash device, maybe for configuration. We have all our jacks along the one side, which is nice, so easy to pop up if you need to. We have some power supply kind of stuff. These are probably switching converters, and it looks like 4 different inductors, and so that's going to be for multiple power supply rails. That's interesting. We have that actually really looks like one of those what do you call those, serial like USB chips that basically convert between USB and serial like UART. And that goes right into the port that's labeled game, interestingly enough. So that's probably, I wonder if that's for like a game controller, and this is a USB host to serial chip, and that's how it interfaces with the main processor so it can read a game controller. That's actually interesting. I know some of these DVD players, they either come with, or you can burn your own DVDs with flash kind of games on them, and that would allow you to play them on certain DVD players with firmware built in that'll support that. So maybe that's what that's for, a game controller. There are some unpopulated parts here, and it's right behind the circle that's labeled TV, so I'm guessing that's for a TV antenna and then like a tuner chip. This obviously doesn't have that functionality, and even if it did, it wouldn't matter because I live in the US and we haven't had analog TV in years and years, let's just put it at that. So yeah, I'm guessing this was designed for an older model that did have that feature, and they removed it once most of their core markets stopped having analog transmissions. Other than that, yeah, this is pretty packed. Anyway, we have the DVD lens itself here, which looks like it's doing the job. Let's see what kind of motor we have, whether it's brushless or brushed. It is a brushed DC motor. So some of the nicer portable DVD players will actually have brushless motors because they allow the entire lens assembly to be made thinner, but at the cost of having more complex circuitry to actually drive the motor at the right speed and all that. So yeah, well, that's a brushed motor. We have another brushed motor all the way down there for the lens, and it drives the lens up and down. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It is a bit how you doing, having like ribbon cables that are clearly too long. They're just generic ones that I guess they had in stock or they could find for cheap, and they just tape them down and kind of bend them over to shorten them. So yeah, not sure. That's probably not going to be great for like EMI or anything like that. We have a switch here, which I'm guessing detects, yeah, that the lid is closed. It's a lid detect switch, and it gets its own little board. Interesting. And let's see. There are screws holding this board down. I'm really not expecting to find anything on the bottom of this board. Okay, flip it over. There is some labeling, so that is slightly possibly interesting. Yeah, this connector, well, it's like a debug port or something. It says ground, SDA, SCL, so it has an I2C port. VCC, TVCB-VS, which is composite video TV input. Ground, TVAR, and TVAL. So I'm guessing those are for like the TV tuner that I mentioned before. And yeah, that's the bit that's like right next to, those are test points for whatever chip would have been installed if it had TV tuning capability. Other than that, we have some kind of like solder blob sort of thing, like for selecting. This is LED 7.4 volts, LED 3.3 volts, and neither are soldered. So that's interesting. We do have very convenient test points for AV in and out. CBVS in, that's your composite. So yeah, if you actually wanted to hack this, and remove the DVD portion and stick a Raspberry Pi or whatever, you could. And it'd actually be trivial to do it because everything's labeled and they're broken out to nice, easy to solder to test points. Down here we have plus T, minus T. It says AD in key AB ground, and that is going towards this ribbon which connected to here. So all these buttons are actually driven off of an analog like resistive divider. That could be an issue in the long run. There definitely are issues where if the buttons start getting oxidized or the connectors that connect the wires to them, it'll send the wrong voltages when you press certain buttons and it'll mix up the functions. It'll basically confuse the controller. And so I've definitely seen that. And there's a whole host, wow, of test points. They have a bunch of test points right underneath the LCD connector, and they're all labeled too. Yeah, interestingly enough, HS, horizontal sync, VS, vertical sync, VCOM, MM, VGL 10 minus 10 volts, VGH plus 16 volts, so those are the supply voltages to the LCD panel, and a bunch of unlabeled ones, which I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess those are all the digital RGB channels. So it's probably gonna be like 886 or something like that. For red, what would it be? Red, green, and then blue would have usually less channels driving it, or maybe green would have less channels. Anyway, so yeah, this is kind of screaming to be hacked. Interestingly enough. But yeah, I'm just going to safely tuck it back in its little home. Got to get the ports in first. And yeah, let's get this at least together enough to see if I killed it, which I don't think I did. Hopefully not. Give me 1 sec. Okay, we are back together, but not screwed together. Still turns on. Make sure it can play DVD there. Yeah. It is reading. It does take like a good maybe 20 seconds to start playing from where it left off. But yeah, works. What I did find interesting is there's a soft power off button on the remote, but it's still, there's a hard power switch. So if you leave that on, it'll still drain battery. So that's not so great, instead of just either relying just on soft power or only hard power. So that's the thing, like even if you switch it off on the remote, you really want to switch it physically off, disconnect the battery so that it doesn't drain in standby. So yeah, I could remove the screen. There's some probably clips all along the top and some screws on the bottom there, but we already saw it's a digital screen, so there's not going to be any controller board that'll convert to analog or between analog and digital or anything fancy like that. If you guys are interested, model number is YD075. I will have links down below if you wanted to get one for your kid. If you have a kid and you're planning a road trip, might be kind of good to get something like this if you already haven't gotten them something like this, or if you already haven't gotten them a tablet or don't want to get them a tablet. This is just another option. Anyway, also pretty good. I ended up watching The Matrix. I have other 2 DVDs which I am going to probably rewatch because it's been years and years since I've watched The Matrix. But it was kind of nice watching it again. Like I said, the experience wasn't like the best. I definitely would have preferred like an HD tablet that's 10 inches, so a little larger than this would have been more enjoyable. But honestly, if I were stuck on an island and this is all that I had to watch, and I only had the Matrix DVD with me, it would still be enjoyable enough for me to watch. But anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and once again, thanks to Yoton for sending this guy in, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.